Welcome to the C# Programmer Zambia. In the previous video, we managed to create our model class, which is the student .cs class, and we managed to create our connection string in the app settings.json file that's found in our server project. We also managed to create the database context class, which is right there, and then we registered this class in the startup class under the configure services method. Okay, so thereafter we went ahead and used our code to generate the migrations that contain the instructions for how our database is going to be created based on the models that we have. Okay, so the models, we only have one model here, which is the student class. That's the model, and then that's the database context. Then thereafter we used the migrations, so we can just open the migration. So we use this migration to create a database that we actually saw being created using when we went to our Microsoft SQL Server Management Studio. We managed to see that the database has been created, but there's no data yet because we haven't entered any data. So we want to enter our first data using our web application, the one that we're still building. Okay, so to get to the scope of this video, we're going to be creating something very simple, and we call it a data repeater component. Okay, so stay tuned. To create our data repeater component, we're simply going to navigate to the client project. We're going to right click and we're going to say add. We're adding a new folder first, and in this folder we're going to name this folder components. All right, strike enter, right click again on the folder now that you've created, add, and we're adding a razor component. So razor components are able to store C# and HTML code in the same file. Okay, so we want this to be called our data repeater component. So it's a data repeater. Let's just use camel case there, like that. So data repeater component, and we strike enter, and there we can see our component. So we don't really need that. Now our data repeater component is simply going to be used to convert our information from the database into a list. Okay, so so that our application can actually read that data. So firstly, we're going to create a list, as I said. So we're simply going to say public list, and we're simply going to say the type is going to be T item. That's like generic item. Okay, so what we have to do now is give the list a name. So I'm going to give it the name items, and we're simply going to say get set, like that. Okay, so okay, let's just make sure that's a parameter. I'm simply going to say parameter, like that. And then this time around, let's go ahead and create our let's also render the, let's be able to render this at runtime. So the data repeater component. Okay, so we're simply going to say public. So we need to render our component, so we're going to use public render fragment, like that. And we're going to say T item. All right, and there we can simply say row and get set. Okay, so get set. Okay, then thereafter we're simply going to add a directive there at type param, and okay, sorry about that, it's supposed to be at, like that. So at type param. Okay, so this one enables us to have, you know, parameters in our, there we're going to say t item, so it allows us to have parameters in our component. Okay, so a type param, then there we can simply say at sorry about that, so at if we simply say items. So if items is not null, so is not equal to now or null, whatever you pronounce it as, we're going to use the if the for each statement to loop through our list. Okay, so what we just have to do now is we're simply going to say at for each. Okay, so at for each, simply include var item. Okay, so this is how we iterate through our list using the for each. Okay, so items. All right, then thereafter we're simply going to do something like that, and we say add row. So if you don't know how to use the for each statement, you can simply just do a short tutorial, or maybe I'm actually going to make a tutorial on how to use lists and how to iterate through the list. It's actually very easy. So what do we have here? Okay, we have two errors. Let's just debug that. So expected. Oh, okay, so there's something that's missing there, a close bracket. And yeah, is there anything else? Yeah, no more issues. Okay, so we're simply creating our data repeater component. Okay, so we've created a list here. We are rendering our data repeater component using that, and then we are iterating through the list, this list, using the for each statement there. Okay, so in the next video we're going to create the API that is going to be connecting and communicating with our database. Okay, so if you want to know how to create the API, check out the next video. See you there.